Picture a girl around 16 years old. It is early morning, roughly 20,000 years ago. The camp is barely awake. Smoke from last night's fire still drifts low through the trees. She looks down, and she sees something she has never seen before. No nurse, no book, no quiet conversation that someone prepared in advance. No word even for what she is looking at. Just the raw physical fact of it, arriving without warning. For one terrifying moment, she thinks something is terribly wrong. She waits for someone to panic. Nobody panics. Instead, the older women around her begin to smile. They take her gently away from the camp, away from the fire, away from everything familiar. And by nightfall, her entire place in the world has changed. Why? That is the question this video is going to answer. And the answer is far stranger, far more beautiful, and far more surprising than anything the history books have bothered to tell you. Start with something nobody expects. A first period in the ancient world did not happen at 12 or 13 years old. It happened later, much later. Anthropologist Nancy Howell spent years studying the Kalahari San, one of the most closely observed traditional hunter-gatherer groups in the world, groups whose lives most closely resemble what prehistoric daily life actually looked like. And what she found overturned the assumption most people carry without even realizing they carry it. Among the San, a girl's first period arrived around 16 years old, not younger, older. Researcher Rose Frisch explained why in the 1970s. Her argument was simple and genuinely surprising. The body does not run on a fixed biological clock when it comes to reproduction. It runs a calculation. It measures available energy, stored fat, food coming in against energy going out. And it does not allow the reproductive system to activate until it is determined that survival resources are sufficient. A girl moving miles every day on lean wild food crosses that threshold later, which means the girl in this story was not a child in the modern sense. She was a young woman. Her body had made its own decision, and the people around her recognized it immediately. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Would she have known what was happening? Almost certainly not. Not the first time. Not with any scientific understanding. In a world with no written language and no formal biology, the experience would have arrived completely without context. But here is what would not have been missing. The women. In a hunter-gatherer band of 25 to 50 people, almost nothing happened in private. The older women around her had all been exactly where she was. They recognized the signal the moment they saw it. And in many traditional societies that anthropologists have been able to study, that recognition triggered something remarkable. Not shame, not silence. The opposite. An elder woman kneels beside the girl. She does not speak immediately. She reaches into a small pouch and dips her fingers into red ochre. Slowly, deliberately, she draws a line across the girl's forehead, then another across each cheek. Around them, the other women begin to hum. Softly at first, then louder. The girl does not fully understand what is happening, but she understands one thing immediately. Nobody is afraid, and whatever this is, they have been waiting for it. Anthropologists have documented rites marking first menstruation in many unrelated societies across the world. The ceremonies differed greatly from culture to culture, but a striking number of them treated menarche as a significant transition worth marking collectively, a threshold the community chose to respond to out loud rather than in silence. Among the Apache, the ceremony built around a girl's first period is called Naa'ii'ees, the Sunrise Ceremony. It lasts 4 days, 4 full days. The entire community participates. The girl is connected through ritual to white-painted woman, the central figure of Apache cosmology, the embodiment of feminine strength and the continuation of the people. During the ceremony, her touch is understood to carry healing power. Families bring sick relatives to be blessed by her hands. She dances until her legs ache. She is dressed and painted by the elder women. Songs are sung that exist only for this occasion. And here is the detail that stops most people. The community gives horses. Not symbolic gifts, actual horses, one of the most valuable things a family could possess, given to mark this moment. The investment was staggering, which tells you exactly how significant this transition was considered to be. But the ceremony was never only celebration. Inside the seclusion period that often accompanied these rituals, something else was happening entirely. Something far more practical, and far more important than anyone who has never thought about it would guess. The elder woman sits beside the girl in the quiet of the seclusion space. She does not begin with ceremony. She begins with plants. She holds up a small bundle of dried leaves and asks if the girl recognizes them. The girl shakes her head. The elder woman nods. Good. Then we start here. Because what the girl was about to receive was not just celebration. It was knowledge. The kind that determined how well she would live for the rest of her life. How to identify medicinal plants. Which ones eased pain? Which ones supported pregnancy? Which ones could stop bleeding that had gone too far? How to care for an infant? How to read the signs of illness? How to navigate the social structures of the group? The cultural traditions that held the community's identity together across generations. Researcher Wenda Trevathan at New Mexico State University, whose work on female community and reproductive knowledge has fundamentally shaped how researchers understand ancient social structures, argues that this kind of woman-to-woman transmission was one of the most important knowledge systems our species ever developed. Not supplementary knowledge, survival knowledge. The first period was not just the beginning of a biological process. In many traditional cultures, it was the beginning of a girl's access to the knowledge her community had accumulated across generations. And here's the moment that should genuinely surprise you. None of this knowledge was written down. Not because the women who held it were uneducated, but because they did not need to write it down. It lived in them, in the transmission itself, in the ceremony, in the hands of the older women teaching the younger ones during exactly this window. When those transmission systems were disrupted by colonization and industrialization and centuries of religious frameworks that treated menstruation as shameful rather than significant, the knowledge did not simply transfer somewhere else. In many cases, it was lost entirely. Now, here is the part that requires honesty. We do not have direct archaeological evidence of menarche ceremonies in prehistoric populations. Ceremonies leave almost nothing behind. Organic materials decay completely over thousands of years. The body paint is gone. The songs are gone. The gifts of perishable material are gone. Any claim made with absolute certainty about what prehistoric girls experienced in this moment is drawing more on inference than on physical evidence. What we have is a pattern, documented across many traditional cultures by anthropologists. A pattern suggesting that collective recognition of menarche was a widespread human tendency. That is not the same as universal proof, but it is far more than coincidence. And then the written record begins, and the picture sharpens dramatically. The oldest known women's health document in existence is the Kahun Gynecological Papyrus from ancient Egypt, dating to approximately 1800 BCE. It addresses menstrual conditions directly, alongside pregnancy and contraception. Egyptian physicians treated menstruation as legitimate medical territory 3,500 years ago. Not shameful, medical. The Greeks took it further. A physician named Soranus of Ephesus produced a 4-volume text simply called Gynecology around the 1st or 2nd century CE. It covered menstruation, anatomy, contraception, and childbirth with careful clinical detail. He even recommended rest during particularly painful periods. Advice that sounds extremely familiar. And here is the fact that tends to genuinely stop people. The products used to manage menstruation that feel completely ordinary today are almost shockingly recent. The first commercially sold menstrual pad was called Lister's Towels. It launched around 1896. It failed immediately. Victorian society considered the subject too shameful to advertise or even discuss openly in stores. It took nurses working during World War I who noticed that cellulose wound dressing material absorbed blood far more effectively than cloth to accidentally kickstart what eventually became the modern sanitary pad industry. The tampon with an applicator was not patented until 1931 by a physician named Earl Haas. It did not reach store shelves as Tampax until the mid-1930s. Let that land for a second. The human species has been menstruating for the entire span of its existence, hundreds of thousands of years, and the products sitting on pharmacy shelves today that feel completely unremarkable have existed for barely a century. For the overwhelming majority of human history, women managed this themselves, with whatever their world provided, generation after generation, guided by the women who came before them, held by the ceremony that marked the transition, taught by the knowledge transmitted in the quiet of the seclusion period. Come back to the girl at the beginning. By nightfall, the ceremony is winding down. The singing has grown quieter. The fire is lower. The elder women sit close. One of them presses something into the girl's hands, a bundle of dried plants. The first of what she will eventually know well. She does not yet understand what each one does. She will. She looks back at the camp she left this morning as a child. She is not the same person who left it. And every person in the camp knows it. Not because she announced it, because they witnessed it, because they sang for it, because they gave for it, because they stayed awake through the night for it. The community did not respond to her transition. The community was her transition. Their recognition was what made it real. For thousands of generations, every grandmother and every mother and every daughter experienced this same biological milestone. The customs surrounding it differed from place to place and era to era. Some communities celebrated with ceremony lasting days. Some taught through quiet seclusion. Some observed rituals we will never fully recover. Others left no record at all. But across the documented span of human history, one truth appears with enough consistency to take seriously. A girl's first period was often far more than a biological event. It marked the moment a child began the journey into adulthood. And with that journey came new knowledge, new responsibilities, and a new place in the world confirmed by the people who mattered most. Long before birthdays, diplomas, or official documents of any kind, the human story recognized adulthood in a different way. For many girls, it began with a single morning they would never forget.